Hello everyone and welcome to my weapon refinement priority tier list update. This time we'll be looking at the new batch, and hey, this video is not late, again. I'm actually surprised. Discord actually helps me being on time a lot more than I thought it would do, but hey. Oh, and for those who are curious about Gangrel, yes, I'm going to do a standalone video on him because, well, first off, he's basically the villain I've been wanting the most from Awakening, and he's actually really good, as in, like, at least S tier from what I've played with him. But, that's a topic for another video. We're here for refinement, so let's get started. Now, before we start with the actual, review of the refines, Lucio went up a tier. I know this is a bit late. I should have done this like last month. If you wonder why she was not in S+ tier, it really wasn't because she was bad. It's just because there was not as many units that can really take advantage of that effect. At the start, it was really just Brave Ike mostly, and then certain specific unit if you had specific set emphasizing on mixed bulk. Now it's a lot more different. There's a lot of characters that can actually abuse the +2 cooldown to a ridiculous extent. So obviously Brave Lucina as a result is a lot better now. Especially because also one of the tech most people did not really realize at first was Special Spiral Slaying and Aether. Egren really pioneered that for the most part because she's one of the best at it. And yeah. Fast forward to now there's a lot more characters that can actually abuse this. I could not actually list all of them. So she's a lot more consistent and can work in a lot more teams. She still has a drawback of just not being able to buff any mages or dragons, but at this point dragons are basically dead and buried. Just being honest here, dragons are not exactly threatening anymore because there are so many ways to counter them. There are so many weapons effective against them, and the main one that can actually stop this is an armored unit, so she's weak to armor killers instead. Which leaves you with a mythic hero and nothing else, and said mythic hero is not that bulky overall, so it doesn't matter nearly as much. So yeah, now we're mostly in the lance, axe, sword, and to some extent bow territory, especially with Norn. So obviously as a result, Brave Lucina is a lot better. Anyway, let's start with Drog. As you can see, he is the lowest on the tier list. A bit unfortunate because I actually did make a Refine Theory Crafting on Drog. The Refine was basically Obstruct 4, but also Obstruct was stopping people from attacking people around him. As long as he had a certain amount of, I believe it was sword and bow units around him. Basically mirroring Gordon and Marsh. Which was a lot more interesting than, hey look, if I get attacked you do 6 attack, and also I get Clara Cudgel effect. It's not bad by any means, but it's not exactly that helpful because really the main problem he has is his res. So emphasizing on what he's already good is cool and all, but is it really needed? Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, with this effect, he has 50 defense, which is great against greens, and makes him a good counter with Vengeful Fighter against, say, Servitor and, to some extent, Edelgard. But that's kind of it. There's not much to him as a result, and he feels very one-note. The -6 attack does help with his res, to some extent, so obviously there's that, and he cannot be debuffed in attack and defense, which again, there's that. But overall, I really just wish that it was attack and res +5, but that's just me. Overall, it's a pretty workable refine, but for the most part, you could just use just about any tank, and then just combo this into Brave Lucina, and you get something very similar to what he can do. So, yeah, and without the armor weakness, of course, which is the biggest problem that Drog runs into. So as far as builds are concerned, here's the first one, trying to at least fix somewhat his res. Because of his weapon and speed res bond here, he effectively hits 42 res. As far as defense goes, he's at 60. Again, it's just redundant after a while. It really is redundant, and that's kind of the problem with him. Also 47 speed, so it's a bit iffy in some cases. I do think the speed floor is a bit higher now to some extent, but it works to a decent amount. If you're afraid of not having enough speed, you can run attack res bond with Vengeful Fighter instead. That works just as well. It's just that you're going to have to replace Ignis for Bonfire, most likely, so it's more consistent since, after all, you still have 42 res either way. 42 speed, my bad. As for the attack here, you're basically looking at 56 plus Drain Drive attack 60 plus Stalwart Sword 65. So 65 attack, 47 speed, on top of actively 54 defense, which means Ignis will give you a total of 35 damage. Which is just about good to kill just about anything, really. And yeah, that's basically all there is to him. There's not much you can really do with him at the end of the day, because not having cooldown -1 effectively shafts him, in a sense that you can't really use Aether consistently or well enough to really work with the fact that he has so much bulk. At least not with special fighter, which is kind of iffy overall. But yeah. As for the second set, the set is just, look, now it's all going in defense. Again, attack and defense. Again, there's not much to it. You basically just hit 68 attack with 47 speed, as well as 59 defense, but with the weapon that basically pushes it to 65 def bulk-wise. Your res is still going to be basically garbage, so that's really the main thing. It's just, if you want to have more defense and just be a red Lucas but armored, there you go. There you go. That's it, really. There's not much to it, really. Drug's weapon is not exactly the most versatile, but it can certainly work in some cases. It's more like it's definitely more a weapon you'd use in AA, because in AA you can actually know when you get to use him, so you can just pop him out if you're dealing with Edelgard or Surtur, or, you know, if you struggle with such units in general, Drug can work as a decent 4-star plus 10. In case you don't know, I'm going to point this out because I know some people watching my channel are actually new players, but you can make a 4-star plus 10 have the pref weapon by taking a 5-star version of said unit and merging it into the 4-star plus 10, or 4-star plus 9 if you want to be, you know, picky on what I'm saying. So essentially this allows you to have a 4-star plus 10, which has more stat than a 5-star unmerged unit, and on top of this, you get the pref. So you get the pref and more stat, effectively. This is a thing that's really worth doing for any characters that you plan on using, but not 5-star plus thinning. So, hey, that's an option. So, yeah. Other than this, not much else to say about Drog. He's a one-trick pony, really. But he's pretty good at said one trick. Next up is Clarice, and Clarice is odd. It really feels like several effects just slapped together, and that's kinda it. Essentially, you have the -7 attack and speed of the base weapon, which used to be 5, and you have a Deadly Dagger effect, or Deathly, I think it is. Basically Jafar's weapon that does -10 damage to the target as well as everyone around it. It's a really good effect overall, and it can definitely make the difference between getting a kill or not for like your ally units. But it does have a glitch right now where if you kill the target, Poison Strike will not proc, so essentially, well, the AoE Poison Strike. In other words, you're basically going to not hit anyone with this. All you're going to have is just Savage Blow from your own kit, if you even have that. Otherwise, it does just nothing, which is a bug that's going to be addressed, I believe, in the next game version. So just notice. As for the other effect, you get 4 attack and speed, which, you know, pretty nice. And if you are within 2 space of support partner, which requires you to be also over 50% HP, which is kind of odd for a fire sweep effect, allows you to basically have a fire sweep effect, which is pretty helpful and very easy to work with unless you get hit, though you do have a decent amount of bulk to actually avoid that. Now, the main problem with this weapon is really the fact that there's another weapon that now exists called Spendthrift Bow. Spendthrift Bow is a far better tanking weapon overall, and just overall an insane bow altogether. The fact that you basically remove 7 attack from your enemy while also getting 7 attack from your own is pretty busted, and the fact that your speed is very solid, which is really the only stat that you need to make Spendthrift Bow work, makes Spendthrift Bow a bit better, in my opinion, for Clarice. Because at the end of the day, it's basically a bow that has 12 might and also gives you 7 attack, 7 def, and 7 res overall, because the enemy loses 7 attack and you get 7 attack yourself. Which is really busted. The main thing is that you can't use specials. Thankfully, Sniper Bow is a very different bow. It's definitely more of an aggressive bow, whereas Spendthrift Bow is more of a defensive bow. So both are actually valid. Still, for the most part, Spendthrift Bow will just work better for you. But yeah, let's talk about builds now, shall we? So the first one is obviously all out damage. Joint Drive Attack and Death Blow 3 will basically push your attack up to 66, the bow to 70, so you effectively have 70 attack and 49 speed. So, hey, that's pretty solid. And on top of this, if you're within 2 space of an ally, you get Fire Sweep effect with this. Now, one of the best part about a Fire Sweep effect is being able to KO certain key units that could actually be a huge threat, which are Vantage Tank, and also, well, speaking of Vantage, TSA Sida. TSA Sida is the younger version of Sida, which is the start of it all, banner. Sida, which basically has a Vantage effect on anyone who are Clara's bow, lance, axe, and swords, which would basically be a one-shot because it's effective damage. This is a good way to counteract this, which makes her a good one-off, if anything. So yeah, that makes her pretty solid, and Sniper Bow itself is a bit weird because you're meant to use it offensively, which typically will get people killed, yet it has a Poison Strike effect on it, which is a bit bizarre. But yes, as far as Dragon Fang is concerned, that's 35 damage because you have 70 attack. Special Spiral basically means your 4 cooldown becomes 2 cooldown after the first proc, which means because of Flashing Blade and Fire Sweep, you'll basically just hit and then proc Dragon Fang every time, which is extremely solid at just basically finishing off anything. As long as you double them, they're dead, basically. And on top of this, obviously, if you have more speed than them, you also get an extra 5 damage from Flashing Blade, effectively making your attack 75, but you get 35 damage from Dragon Fang. Yeah, this is a really good damaging weapon, and also, unlike characters like Leon, you don't need to have lower HP. Really, the only condition are very easy to fulfill, which are just having your support unit within 2 space. It's not exactly hard, and you can combo this into, say, for example, if you don't have Special Spiral, you could combo this into Raphael to start the combo sooner. Or, no, if you have Special Spiral, but you don't have Flashing Blade 4, my bad. So you'd be able to set up a bit quicker for something like Dragon Fang or Draconicora or Bonfire, depending on what you want to run. Really, it's up to you. There's a lot of combos that can be made. Kaden is a good example. Myrrh is a good example. Myrrh is also a good example, though really the main point about Myrrh is the fact that she has so much range when buffing, so that's kind of redundant. Peony is a good example. There's a lot of character that can work with this. But yeah, it's overall a character that requires positioning, but can have a lot of payoff. As for the other set, it's a very obvious one, which is, you know, this. Again, though, I do want to preface this by saying that you do have a lot of attack, for the most part, except with this set, because you only have 60 attack. And I also do want to say this set does not work right now, but once Sniper Bow gets fixed, it's going to get a lot better. The idea is to basically do a lot of damage all around the target as well as the target itself. And effectively what this means is that the target itself will take 17 damage if you did not kill it, and everything around the target will take 21. It effectively makes you a slightly better pain plus unit, because obviously you don't have the problem of healers, which is to have raffle on the weapon, but also your B slot is taken. You'll have more damage. You won't hit res, however, which is really the main drawback here. But yeah, overall you have 65 attack with this set, so typically you'll still kill. A good way to utilize this is to use AoEs. And just, instead of using blazing, potentially just using one that has more range. So you can do way more damage across the board. That way, everything within 2 space of the target, with say growing wind, for example, would basically just lose all of their health for the most part. As long as you have more speed than them, that's already 5 damage there. Savage Blow, and Sniper Bow will do another 21, and then you have the AoE itself. So, again, this is definitely something you can make work with. But not right now, as the weapon is broken currently. At least when you kill something with it. Next up is Myrrh. Now, Myrrh is not a character I was really expecting to see a refine. And honestly, I'm kind of disappointed she did. Because as far as Gen 2 characters are concerned, she definitely was not the main one in my mind as far as character needing a refine went. That said, it did address a problem that was honestly a big problem for her for a while, so I'm willing to let it slide. Essentially, first off, the death check. The death check went down from 5 point over the enemy to 1, making it a lot more consistent. A lot of people missed that detail, but yes, this is actually very much a fact. However, she also gets an extra 5 defense, so it's really more like if, you know, you have a difference of 9 defense at this point compared to what the original weapon was. It's a huge increase, and yeah, no surprises there. As for the second effect, as long as you have over 25% HP at the start of combat, and you're within 2 space of an ally, okay, you get 5 across the board. Now, I know already what some people will say, why speed? But all I have to say to this is, oh my god, does that help her. I've always been saying that Myrrh with Speed Plus is a lot more frustrating to deal with than a Def Plus Myrrh, because Speed Plus can actually prevent follow-up a lot easier, and even if you have stuff like Bold Fighter, doesn't do shit. Though in this case it doesn't even matter, because it neutralizes effect that guarantees foes follow-up. So essentially, even if you have 1 more defense than the enemy, even if they use Bolt Fighter, they'll only hit once. Also, this does apply to Raging Storm, if you're wondering. Raging Storm allows you to double Beasts and Dragons. This doesn't work on Myrrh, as long as Myrrh has more defense, of course, which can be a bit difficult considering Edelgard's weapon does -6 defense. But, you know, depending on the situation, it's very much doable. So yeah, overall, this is a very good weapon. I just wish it was a character from Gen 2 that needed it more, but it's still a good weapon. Speed Plus will do a lot for you, however, because the main thing that can actually counter you would be Creator's Sword as well as Null Follow-Up. And also Marita's Sword, I guess. Which are weapon with Null Follow-Up built in, or even weirder, like anything that's related to follow-up being negated with Creator's Sword. Creator's Sword is his own weird thing, but essentially, you'd be able to still block them if you go Speed Plus, that is. Now, I'm taking this here, and you might wonder, wait, the speed is not looking too impressive. But you have to realize, the +5 across the board that Great Flame gives, extremely useful. So here you're basically looking at, obviously, with Great Flame active, you're looking at 71 attack. As far as speed is concerned, you're looking at 49. Because you get 5 speed from the weapon and 5 from speed res bond. So you're basically looking at 71-49 offensively. This works at all turn. Mystic Boost is a really good option because this keeps you over 25% with Great Flame, which makes it easier for you to actually, you know, stay alive. And then you also have 51 defense and 51 res. You're a really good mix tank. And on top of this, you're quick. And on top of this, you have enough damage. Now, the main problem that this character runs into is archers. But that's also something you can deal with by just running Iode's Shield. That said, you'll probably want to run Join Drive Speed instead. So, just keep that in mind if you are planning on doing this. Because with Join Drive Speed, you still end up with 48 speed, 49 with a flower, so, you know, that's really solid. You're still basically quick enough to prevent follow-up, your weapon prevents follow-up, and, you know, you also have good enough attack, you have sustain through Mystic Boost, and because of Bonfire, you can just get hit back, and then have it ready for another fight. This is really the main problem. You don't really get consistent special because you don't get to have something like Brave Lucina. At best, you can run Moonbow or Glimmer, which are not exactly great moves, since dragons cannot use Ruptured Sky, neither can beasts, which is kind of underwhelming, but oh well. Oh, either way, this is a fantastic weapon and can definitely work for her. The main problem becomes really archers and nothing else. Archers will always be a problem though, because archer basically forces you to pick between having a lot better bulk or, you know, having Iode's Shield to deal with those archers. So which makes her, again, better in AA than everywhere else. Still, overall, a fairly good unit. As far as the second set, this is the one that completely throws away the speed. You still hit 40 speed, by the way, I just want to point that out. But you end up with, you know, 71 attack, 40 speed, as well as 51 defense and 49 res. You have quick riposte here to just be more consistent at doubling, because otherwise your 40 speed is not enough. This set cannot use Iode's Shield. Unless you replace Mystic Boost for quick riposte, which is kind of awful because your weapon can then get negated, and on top of your weapon being negated, quick riposte could get negated because your HP is too low, and yeah, that's not too great overall. Still, this is overall a fairly solid unit, just not exactly what I would aim for personally. Now, Donald. I just want to point out, at first I thought his weapon was S- tier. Then I ran some calc, obviously using the proper way to use a dual simulator, which is, obviously, to stack odds completely against you while you don't have any odds going for you. I also found out that with low attack def, he's actually able to slaughter Edelgard even though she's +10 with 5 Dragon Flower, a buff to attack in def by 6. And yeah, she doesn't even get to move once. That is a thing. That is a thing that happened. So, yeah. If you're curious about this, actually, before I just start even with this, this is basically the matchup list. God damn it. Let me just do this instead. So we can have this side by side. Oh boy. So, as you can see, he wins both of them. Edelgard, really, the only way she can actually tank this guy at all is to have a outside help giving her a drive defense or any kind of thing. Myrrh, even Myrrh is enough. But we're talking about a blue versus a green armored unit that is, by the way, solo, so yes, Myrrh is in fact active. Everything is active for Edelgard. She actually still dies. You just do that much damage because you end up beating her in attack, so Heavy Blade 4 procs on your side. More on that later. Essentially, the only way for Edelgard to ever deal with you would be to have a either Special Fighter, which no one runs that on Edelgard for a very good reason, or a outside help giving her a drive def. As far as Sophis goes, as you can see, she gets slaughtered here, and this is without a special because of Special Fighter shutting you down. That said, this is with 3 Dragon Flower. If she gets the 4th Dragon Flower, giving her defense +1, she actually lives. As you can see, there's 0 overkill here. She simply will not, in any way, shape, or form, be, or rather, she would just utterly destroy you. And just because she would be able to tank. But yeah, Sophis is a bit strange because at the end of the day, I'm also considering using Steady Posture. I don't know if that is still the main thing that people use on Sophis. It was dumb the first day I saw this. It is still dumb now, as this does not really help her all that much. I would still use a bond more so than anything, but Sophis, even if, you know, you have everything going for her and she has a bunch of defense and everything is going for her, the second that Donald has even 1 charge, he kills her, despite all these buffs. Because Ruptured Sky procs. And if Ruptured Sky procs, ooh, see that 61 attack? That's 66 with Snow's Grace. You take 40% of this. That's 26 damage. Ruptured Sky does 26 damage. Both of these are +10, and yes, Donald is +10, and Donald has only an attack tactic buff up on him. That's it. Nothing else, and he's initiating. Yeah, Donald is kind of disgusting. So, let's talk about build, shall we? Whoop. Hold up. Alright, there we go. So, alright. Donald here. This set is not the main one. This is the other set. This one is really good because you can still run Special Spiral with it. As for the amount of attack, let's just calculate this. 59, 63 with the weapon, 67 with Drain Drive attack, 73 with Death Blow 3, Heavy Blade pushes the damage up by 5, so you're at 78. Yeah. 78 attack on a Brave weapon. And with Special Spiral, Ignis becomes a 2 cooldown, and then with Heavy Blade, you hit, you proc. I think you can kind of tell where this is going at this point, and that's not the set that actually kills Edelgard, by the way, mind you. The set that kills Edelgard is the same that kills Sophis, and it's with Ruptured Sky. Ignis is utterly overkill, but if you want to be consistent, then that's a good way to go about it. Though, by consistent, I really mean, like, be careful, Special Fighter will screw you over. But even with Special Fighter in mind, most blue will just die. No matter how you look at it, they will just die. Blue and red are basically worthless in front of this. That said, you could also run drag back if you plan on using this purely in AA, because, you know, AA, you get to pick what unit you use, and therefore it's a lot better. As for, I'm sure what some people are curious to hear, what about Surtur, Jay? If you have a Dancer, you utterly kill him in any set. Ruptured Sky will kill him as well. You need a Dancer, however, because you do not one-round KO him, but even if you don't, it doesn't matter. He still dies on the second attack. And this is with Steady Stance 4, this is with plus 10, this is with all Dragon Flowers, and this is with a buff. It doesn't matter. He still dies. Yeah, Donald is kind of busted, which is why, ironically, at first I put him down to S-. Then, after that, I put him to S tier because I was like, oh, okay, but, you know, Flyers and Cavs have, you know, one more movement through aerobatic flyer formation and just be a Cav overall. But being infantry also allows him to run this set, which this set is a lot more destructive than anything that any of those characters can put out. And therefore, that's why he is in S+. Though I feel like he is still the weakest of the S+ tier units. So yeah, overall Donald, really strong character. As you can see here, Ignis basically, because of Hoon Lens, I don't know how to pronounce this shit, dude. That's 36 damage. 36 damage is ridiculous, especially on top of something that hits for 78 attack twice. Yeah. The impact effect is not exactly useful for the most part, unless you're dealing with something like, say, Vengeful Fighter. No, actually, not even. Like, Vengeful Fighter with any character that guarantees, that blocks your follow-ups. Edelgard, for example, or Momori. These types of character, because then you can block them from doing their follow-up at all, and then just go again to kill them. That said, while I do say this, it is very niche and barely does anything for you. Really, the main thing you're looking at here is the fact that this is a 11 Might Brave weapon with a +4 attack and defense. That's it. It's the most basic bitch weapon of all time. It's very similar to what Luke has, because what Luke has is a 11 Might weapon that gives him 6 attack and defense if the enemy doesn't have a buff up. Except here, there's basically no requirement. So that allows him to run a low skill, which basically makes it slightly better than Luke in terms of damage, because what you end up with is effectively an 18 Might weapon with, you know, low attack depth. And the enemy cannot buff their defense against it either. And as far as defense goes, you're also at +7, unlike Luke's +6. And you also get 3 res, because again, low attack depth, and again, the enemy cannot buff their attack. Which makes Donald slightly better in the damage side, but having more range can be very helpful here and there. So that's set number 1, and now for set number 2. Yeah, this is a very basic set, as you can see, and it works wonders. You're basically looking at 81 attack, as well as 49 defense and 36 res. Yeah, this is ridiculous. And this is one of the few characters I really don't suggest building into speed. Yes, he can actually make his speed work to quad, but it doesn't matter. It really does not matter, because at the end of the day, okay, 2 hit is all you need. And building into speed actually makes you lose matchups, like matchups against Edelgard, for example. So, you know, it's a bit iffy overall. But yeah, this is the set I've used for all of the fights I've showcased. Really, there's not much more to it than that. You can just kill Sophis and Arrowguard, and that alone, those are like some of the bulkiest units of this game that are from green. And the fact that Donald deals with that is utterly insane. And yet he does. So that makes him an absolute monster. This is a must-have 4-star plus 10 if you can actually afford the 20k feathers for it. I know, big price. Because even at 4-star plus 10, he functions really well. I believe he's basically what you see here with 2 less attack. Do you need low attack def to make it work? No. No, you don't. But Heavy Blade 4 is more or less required if you want to make it work as well as you can, because otherwise you don't really get to have the special. Now, if you take the special out of there, yeah, sure. Doesn't matter. You can just use drag back instead to just be able to snipe something, kill it off, and then just back off. This works just fine for that. Just know that he won't be a green killer, obviously. He's going to be mostly a blue and red killer. But still, that's really solid. So yeah. Overall, a very solid unit. And very cheap one at that too. Like, you can just run Death Blow 3 plus another Death Blow 3 and then run, as the B skill, Drag Back with Moonbow. That's it. That's still really, really effective. You're still basically looking at like 69 attack. Actually, no, 73, my bad. Which, again, ridiculous. And very cheap too, as I said. So that's why he is S+ tier. And with that said, I think I've covered just about everything I wanted to cover. In conclusion, this batch is, I mean, outside of Drog, all of them are fairly solid and have their own niche. Clarice is a solid TSAC killer. Myrrh is a solid Omni-Tank. Donald is a solid destroyer, really. Like, most things that come across him will just die. Like, for example, you see Myrrh here? The second set I showcase, if Donald hits that Myrrh is dead. Straight up. There's just no way around it. It just dies, because Raptured Sky is just... Raptured Sky will just basically take that 70 attack and be like, oh, 28 damage. Had an extra 10 damage from Heavy Blade 4, and you're already at 38 damage, and I'm not even talking about the rest of the attack. What? Like, Donald is insane. Donald is utterly insane. So, yeah. I think I've said just about all I had to say about this banner. This refined tier list update. Hopefully this was enlightening to some, and well, yeah. I don't really have much else to say. So, hey, I guess I'll see you all in the comments. Oh, and for those who are curious about what happened with Bright Nyla, she's +10 now. Anyway, I'll be seeing you all later. Have a nice rest of the day, everyone. See ya.